This is the first Android device I have ever fully daily driven in over a decade of using iPhone. And honestly, it's been a lot of fun. So what is it? This is the Nothing Phone 3. It is Nothing, which is the company name, their first ever flagship smartphone with their bold and interesting and minimal design language, which they've carried through all their devices. But this seems to be kind of the culmination of that in a lot of ways, at least for me and my perspective. Why does it exist? Well, Nothing's sort of point for being is to sort of create new and interesting devices in a sea of meh and normal and cookie cutter Android devices. And honestly, this has been a lot of fun. Like I said, I daily drove this for about 2 weeks. So we're gonna get into my full review here. And as we do, let's start with the form. First thing to note here is this sort of signature of this new device, this little glyph dot matrix that they've added here. Very interesting, basically a small dot matrix screen that allows you to see different notifications, check the time, check your battery, play a few little gimmicky games here and there, all while your phone is face down, not distracting you. I've really enjoyed this. We'll talk about it a little bit more here in a second. I absolutely love this design. It's not for everyone. It's definitely not symmetrical, which could be bothersome for some people. Usually that's a problem for me, but because I just love what they're doing and the intentionality and thought behind this design, like it's incredible. I love this thing. I love the way it looks. I love the glass back here. I love the design behind the glass. I, for some reason, like the camera layout here. It's not typical, which is kind of their whole thing. These aluminum rails feel amazing. The phone feels so premium, and it almost feels like an all glass phone with these, aluminum rails going around the end, which is honestly a little bit reminiscent of like iPhone 4 era, which is kind of funny. I just sort of thought about that actually. These buttons are crazy good, nice and clicky and tactile. I will say the corners are less rounded than iPhone. If you can see iPhone here, iPhone started going for a more rounded corner. This is a little more squared off design, which took me a little bit of getting used to while holding the phone. That sort of like sits right there, but overall super comfy and nothing to complain about here. The aluminum here also is sort of rounded around the sides, so it's a very comfortable feel in the hand. I will say, like, it's slightly taller. Here, I'll put my iPhone 16 Pro here. It's got a case on it. Slightly taller, so a little bit bigger, not really that much wider. So just coming from the iPhone 16 Pro, that size difference was noticeable to me. There was a case included in the box, which is wild and not really something anyone ever does anymore, so that's very much appreciated, especially since when a new device and a new model comes out like this, for this type of company with Apple, there's cases lined up of third-party manufacturers, but for them, there's not really many out there. So the fact they include one in the box really sort of gets rid of that anxiety of like, well, I've got to carry this around for a few months until these third-party device, case manufacturers catch up. So yeah, that's just a really nice nod from the company, and I really do appreciate that actually. Along with the design of the hardware itself, you do have this sort of overlay of Android from Nothing themselves. Very minimal, monochrome aesthetic with the dots and everything, which I think it looks fantastic. If you come into settings here, there's a lot of similar UI interfaces here with that sort of dot matrix. So really, all of these things that I've mentioned are what sort of caught my eye about this phone specifically, but also just Nothing and their design language across all their products. So enough about design, let's talk about the actual functionality here and what it was like using this device. Now, like I said, I daily drove it with my phone number, my eSIM in here for the first time ever, coming away from iPhone. And I don't want this video to become like a iPhone, Android kind of comparison or like the problems I have there. I might do that at another time. But in terms of like actually using this device, I personally think this is a great flagship device. I think it holds out against my even iPhone 16 Pro. Comparing the two, if you're able to even really do that, I think this has a lot of great functionality. It works, it's snappy, there's no lagging, like there's a lot of internals and like refresh rates and the 50 megapixel cameras, like there's a lot here that is just really nice. I think that the stereo speakers here are fantastic on the device, nice and loud. Coming from a CMF phone, which only had like the single down firing speaker here, having those stereo speakers is quite nice and is a flagship kind of thing. Calls were super clear, had quite a few phone calls on this. I enjoyed that experience as well. I will say I was pleasantly surprised with the fingerprint sensor. It's nice and snappy. I know it's not like the craziest thing on the market right now, but I didn't run into any issues using it. I think it works perfectly fine. Again, I'll mention those 50 megapixel cameras. There's 4 of them. You have 3 on the back and 1 on the front, which is kind of wild if you think about it. Something I really liked about the operating system and sort of the OS here is within the camera app, you have these sort of like filmic presets that you can make. There's some in there already, and then the community can make them as well, which you can then copy to your device and use those. It has a very like Fujifilm-esque kind of vibe to it, and the fact there's a little bit of a community around it is kind of cool as well. Now, talking about the OS just in general, again, not trying to make this like an Android iOS thing, but what's weird to me, and I mentioned it in a past video about the CMF Phone 2 Pro, I think it was my first foray into nothing. And so when I was setting it up, I was like, wow, there's a lot of Google stuff I'm having to go through here. And I know this is kind of built on Android, built with Google, because nothing hasn't created enough software to compete with Google. So they're just sort of piggybacking off of Google. So I understand that from like that perspective and why they're doing that. But it does feel strange to me, especially coming from iPhone and iOS, that you have Android that's running a bunch of Google software that then has nothing OS on top of it. It's like you're running 3 operating systems and you're constantly running into those like differences, and it's not very uniform. So while I do love all the apps and software that nothing has created, it's not like the complete experience because you're running into Android stuff and Google stuff as well. So that was an interesting experience, which I guess you get some amount of that on any Android device. But as for what nothing has created, fantastic. I love it. Battery life is great as well. Like this was, lasting me a day and a half usually. I wasn't having to charge it all that much, which was fantastic. I would charge it overnight, but I would, go to bed with plenty of battery life. So battery on this thing was great. The last thing I want to talk about again is this dot matrix, which I think this is great. Like the idea of it being able to like be at dinner with someone, and if my wife texts me, a heart pops up and I'm like, oh, I should probably answer that. If just a regular like email or like letter image pops up, that's probably a friend or like someone that isn't as important. So I can just leave my phone there. Like that's not something that should distract me. So being able to see those kinds of things as well as phone calls, things like that come through here is nice. Being able to check the time really quickly or your battery life really quickly, again, without having to do this, launching into this device with social media and all those different apps that will capture your attention. It's just a cool idea. Problem is, and I don't know if it's just this device, the one I was sent, or if this is across the board, or if it's a hardware issue or a software issue. This is the little button, the little interface right there. It doesn't work 70% of the time. And I will push hard. Okay, so now it's working, right? But then I'll go to here in a sec, and now it's not working. And I don't like how hit or miss that is, especially since this is kind of like a main feature, a main marketing thing. It's weird to me that sometimes it won't work. And friends and family, they would see this and be like, oh, what's this thing? And I would try to show them or get it to play rock, paper, scissors. And half the time it wouldn't work. My kids and my nieces and nephew were like, let's play rock, paper, scissors. And I'm just sitting there pounding the button because it's not working correctly. Look, it's not doing anything. That really bugged me, and it was kind of a bummer because I do love this whole feature. It's one of my favorite features of the phone. I know it was kind of hit or miss for a lot of people, but for me, that is so different, and I think useful than what other devices have on them. So the fact that it may or may not work really bugged me. It was kind of a bummer. Another thing I wanted to mention is you'll see I have the Nothing Headphone 1, and I think this is the CMF Watch 3 Pro. A big thing for me is with the Apple ecosystem, I've gotten so used to my phone. Usually it's paired with my Apple Watch. This is an extension of the phone, and then having headphones, right? So when I picked up this, I knew I was going to be lacking the watch aspect and a nice headphone aspect. I wanted to pick these up separately just because I love them. But I wanted some amount of ecosystem, and I'm glad that Nothing at least has something. This watch is under $100. It's never going to compete with the likes of Apple Watch, but to be completely honest with you, it is a lot further along and closer to the Apple Watch than I would think, than I thought it would be, especially coming from the Watch 2 Pro, Pro, which I've also tested out in the past. This for under $100, and sometimes it's even on sale. Like even like the day it came out, it was on sale, which is wild. This is a good watch. And really I just needed something to sort of relay text to my wrist while my phone was in my pocket, so I could see if I need to get my phone out. That's the main thing. But the fact that it does have health tracking, you can check your weather on here. There's just some things that are nice to have at a glance here that you don't necessarily want to always be pulling your phone out for. Same idea with the dot matrix here. There's like this in between of like, I need to be notified of some things, but not fully immersed in a device. The fact they have this was great, and I would recommend anyone, if you're getting this phone, get this watch. Like it is their most expensive and best watch from their sub-brand CMF. It works great with the phone. The headphones are fantastic, and even though I'm going back to iPhone for now, I have been using these every day. I love them. I think they look amazing. This pairing was really great, and the fact that I can continue using these with my Mac and my iPhone has been great too. So I thought this was kind of necessary, and they do have like pretty cheap and amazing like earbuds too. They have a whole lineup of them, and they're all really affordable. They're all designed super cool with this sort of design aesthetic and this design language. So I just wanted to call out those accessories because I did think to get the full experience of the phone, I needed to have these or some version of these. Right, so who is this phone for? Honestly, I think the perfect person is an Android user who wants something a little bit different, something a little less cookie cutter, something with, I don't know, just like this aspect, the dot matrix that doesn't work half the time, and hopefully it does on other devices that they've made. If someone who cares about design, someone who likes trying things that are new, who likes different experiences, right? Like if you're just keep the same phone for 4 years, then get the next version of the Pixel or, you know, Samsung device that you have, then go ahead and do that. But I would recommend anyone who'd like to try something new, or even just pick up, like if you have a little bit of jingle in your pocket and you want to pick up another device to try out. If you're going from Android to Android device, it's so much easier than iPhone to any Android device. So this would be an easy sort of jump, something to play around with, something to, you know, this could be your weekender phone or something. You keep it really minimal and it could be sort of like your dumb smartphone. I think that's the perfect use case, at least from my perspective. I definitely think like the minimalist type of person who cares a lot about design and wants something minimal, you can definitely make this phone a little bit more minimal, kind of going off that dumb phone idea, but just a little bit more classy, a little bit more design forward kind of device. This would be great for you as well. And honestly, if you just want a device that feels premium, but isn't breaking into the thousands of dollars place, I don't know. I was really impressed by this. I will say, if you're coming from iPhone and you love iPhone, I think any Android device is hard to jump to. But honestly, this probably would be another step in the difficulty direction. I think if you're coming from iOS and you want to switch to Android, you definitely can, but something more like the Pixel or maybe even a Samsung device might be a better jump for you. I personally would go Pixel, and I'm excited to try out Pixel 10 Pro here in the next few weeks, but it's really hard coming from iOS to Android. So that's gonna do it. If you'd like to pick one up for yourself, the Nothing Phone 3, you can check the link in the description, and I think I can tag them in the video as well. You can buy it right through that link if you'd like as well. Thanks so much for watching. On this channel, we talk about tech that marries form and function. We like tech that improves our lives and looks good while doing so. So if that sounds cool to you, please subscribe and like this video for more. Oh, and watch this video next. I think you're gonna love it. We'll see you all in the next one.